Hello, my name is Nigel. I'm an expert physiotherapist. How can I say that? Well, because I've done this for 25 years and I've seen my fair share of people who are struggling to progress through their rehabilitation. You may have back pain, you may have been suffering from it, and seeing a therapist and feeling like despite doing your Clam exercises and your bird dogs and your spinal rotations, you're just not getting any better. In fact, you may feel even worse. Why is that? Is it because the exercises are wrong? Is it because you're not doing them right? Is it because your therapist doesn't know what they're doing? It's every chance that none of those things are true. It just comes down to getting the correct recipe. In this video, I'm going to explain 4 reasons why your rehab might not be progressing and how you can make those small adjustments that make the dosage correct and the recipe a success. Let's start with number 1. Now, one of the mistakes that people often make is they overload too much or they underload too much. And the real secret to success when it comes to improving through a rehab program is appropriate loading, where you get just the right amount of load that stresses the tissue to get positive adaptive change, i.e. I get stronger, but you don't put too much load that strains it, and you don't put too little load which doesn't provoke a response. So when it comes to specific exercises through rehab, it's very important that we get that load right. So just as an example, if we had a strain to our bicep muscle, this muscle which does this motion in our arm, then basically there's going to be a reduction in the capacity of that loading because you've had a strain to that muscle. So if we simply do exercises against gravity and that's okay, it doesn't make the symptoms worse, then that's great, it's a good exercise. But if I had a strain in that muscle and I leaped straight to a weight and was trying to do some bicep curls with a weight, there's every chance that that load would be too great for the muscle at that stage of recovery. It would give me pain, it would increase the dysfunction, and I would struggle to progress through rehab because I'd be constantly overloading the tissue. How do you know whether you're overloading a tissue? Well, most of the time it will tell you through symptoms. Usually those muscles will get, those symptoms will get worse the more you do the exercise, which ultimately is not the purpose of exercises, not a good sign for exercises when it comes to most things. We want to sometimes have some discomfort, but we want to increase our exercise and our mobility without a significant increase in symptoms. So watch out for appropriate loading. So my next question about why you might not be progressing through rehabilitation is what's happening the other 23 hours. You might be fantastic at doing your exercises, a brilliant adherer to all the things which are told for you to do on your program. Those bird dogs, those rotations, those Clam exercises, those extensions. But you may be brilliant at doing those and do them diligently for 15, 20 minutes, 3 times a day. What's happening with the rest of your day? In terms of the example, low back pain, if we take that as an example, we may be doing all our good exercises, but what are we doing with our posture? Often I see people with lower back problems and they're doing the exercises, but they're spending hours upon hours in front of desks, keeping sedentary, slumping over a desk in a very poor posture, not moving, and that of course is an incredibly mitigating factor when it comes to improving through our program. Because if we are doing all the right things which are helping to strengthen and mobilize our back, but the rest of the time we're doing activities or lack of activities which are straining our back, which is going to be the winner? The 15 to 20 minutes 3 times a day, our maximum, or the 8 hours of sitting at a desk? It's going to be the 8 hours of sitting at a desk. That lack of progress is going to be related to that problem. Also, we can go the other end of the extreme, whereby we're doing overloading activities. So let's say you're a manual worker, or you're, say, a landscape gardener, something of that nature, or your particular hobbies really involve activity that you won't give up despite having this lower back problem. Well, in that sense, we are overloading the tissues. We can be doing our mobilization, our gentle stretches, our strengthening, our core work, whatever it is that we're doing in terms of our program. But if we're overloading it through our overactivity, then of course we're not going to progress. We're going to be continuously straining those tissues. Notice that we get strained with inactivity, sitting in a poor posture for long periods of time, but we also can get strained from overactivity, where we are doing too much, loading it too much. And again, it comes back to that appropriate loading. We want that happy medium of positive loading, not overloading or underloading, where we're going to get strain at either end of those extremes. So think about what you're doing in the rest of the time that you're not doing your exercises, and is that making any difference to your progress? Have a think about it. Now, reason number 3 relates to your mindset. You must get your mind right, because if you are terrified that something terrible is going on, if you are really distressed and your focus is on the pain levels, then actually that negative pattern of thinking can make things worse. I'm not saying that you can just blank out everything and that you just lose touch with reality. I'm not saying that, but actually there is scientific evidence that shows that if you think positively about your progress, you will actually progress better. If you are feeling like, oh, if I move in that way, it's going to hurt, so I'm not going to. That is a fear avoidance type of mindset, and it is a negative mindset. Now, obviously, this has got to be balanced, because there may well be certain movements that are painful to do, which you need to be careful doing. But I'm talking about fear of movement, fear of all movements. You need to be able to keep moving. Moving, relaxing, deep breathing, calmness, that helps you to progress. So if you are constantly on edge that you are going to hurt yourself, there is evidence that shows that it helps to prolong the problem, and it becomes more chronic. The nerve side of things as well, the central nervous system changes. Hormonal changes with the way we think, mean that we increase the sensitivity of our nerve system, and that in turn can actually mean that we experience more pain. Now, the pain system is a very complex one, and so I am being very, very simplistic with what I'm talking about. But the message to take on is that you need to strengthen your mindset as well as doing exercises which physically strengthen yourself. Think positively. Focus on the good things that are happening, the improvements, even if they're small, incremental movements and changes which are happening. Then please focus on those things and ultimately believe that you are going to improve, and that should make a difference as well. Finally, please be aware of the patterns of progress. They are not linear. Often we think to ourselves that we would like everything to smoothly go nicely, better and better and better. But if we have a graph with recovery on one side, so let's say full recovery is up here, and this is time, then basically we often expect things to go like this when it comes to recovery, a gradual improvement. We start our rehab down here, and over the process of time, we get back to full recovery up here. Unfortunately, life isn't like that. Unfortunately, the pattern of recovery often takes more of a route of this till we eventually get up there. The ups and downs of recovery. You'll have good days and bad days, and sometimes it's for no rhyme or reason, and sometimes you know that you've done something or had to do something, because that's everyday life, to get yourself better. You've had to do something and it has strained it slightly, and you've had that little dip down. Or maybe as a therapist, I've given that an exercise which is perhaps slightly overloaded, not intentionally of course, but it does happen because this is an inexact science. But the important point is that over time, the general trend is one of recovery. So if you're stuck down here somewhere, do not fear. You just need to try to adhere to some of the things that I've said in this video and see if you can improve the progress that you're making through your rehabilitation, because it does work. So finally, I want to encourage you that if you are struggling to get through your rehab, if you're struggling to progress, then do keep believing, do keep trying, don't give up. You only often need to make some small changes that can make a massive difference. And you just need to try to analyze trial and error to see if those changes can actually mean that you suddenly propel through your rehabilitation and get much, much better. I certainly hope so, and I wish you all the best.